Okay, g'day guys, Wereman here, welcome back to the workshop. We are continuing on with formation building because I've had an idea for a scenario and I thought it might be an idea to give you guys an overview of what I'm thinking of having happen, and we can, we can get some feedback maybe whether you actually want to see it happen or not. But to maneuver us along, we have page 22 of the clan box set rulebook. We're still looking at formation building. Today we are looking at a Recon Lance or Recon Star or Recon level 2, I guess. And these are some of the cool ones. These are pretty cool. The ability they get is good. I don't know if it's actually I don't know if it's actually that useful, but it is pretty good. But quotations first, as always. So Recon Stars employ extremely fast units that can rush ahead of the main force, use their speed to scout objectives, evade enemy fire, and harass or flank their opponents. This formation type is particularly useful in campaign settings where intelligence gathering is important, but can also be helpful in standard scenarios. And did all of you Steiner players with the Atlas Scout Lance pick that up? You all got that, right? Okay, good. All units in a Recon Star must possess a minimum ground walk cruise speed of 5 MP. So your base level walk for a mech or cruise for a vehicle is 5. At least 2 units in the formation must possess the Scout or Striker unit roles. So your strikers are slightly harder hitting than normal scouts. So if you build it by the requirements, as long as you can get that movement point allowance on a striker, you can do quite well. You can get some fairly heavy hitting units. Note that it doesn't give you a weight class limit here. Okay, there's no weight limit. So technically, if you have an assault mech that has 5 movement points and at least 2 of the other units there have either scout or striker, then you're okay. You can put an assault class mech in there as long as it's got the 5 movement points. So, I mean, that obviously excludes the Atlas. I think they're 3 5s, aren't they? So, you know. Ideal role as a scout, and there are a lot of scouts out there. There's a lot of scouts. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding one that you feel comfortable using. And if you can find 4, 5, or 6 of them, then you can put them together into a formation and do some cool stuff. The bonus ability is, so as long as at least 3 of them are still upright and still fulfill the requirements, you get all members of the Recon Star receive the Maneuvering Ace ability. Maneuvering Ace is the one that lets you move like a quad mech. So a mech with this ability may move into adjacent hex that is not directly to its front or rear while retaining its original facing. Lateral shift costs 1 movement point in addition to the cost of moving into the target hex. I think I worked out at one point that basically just saves you 1 movement point. So the ability to lateral shift will save you overall 1 movement point. Okay, so it's costing you 1 to do, plus any other movement, right? But you don't have to change your facing. Now, if it costs you nothing, then you'd be saving 2 movement points. But because it costs you 1, normally you would have to change your facing by 1, move forward, then change your facing by 1, right? So on a clear hex, it's 1, 2, 3. But with a lateral shift, it's 1 to move in and 1 for the lateral shift, so it's 2, right? So overall, you're saving yourself 1 movement point. And that can be the difference between a target movement modifier that saves your life and a target movement modifier that gets one of your legs blown off. So it doesn't sound like a lot, and I mean, I don't know if it's really worth it, to tell you the truth, but it is still a solid ability. So if you're building a formation, then it's worth thinking about. There are, as I say, a lot of scouts out there. A lot of vehicle scouts, a lot of mech scouts. There's loads of them. You'll find a lot of vehicle scouts because a lot of the vehicles are so small and so fast that they just automatically fit this kind of role. So there's a lot of light hovercrafts and VTOLs and things that they just automatically have at least one variant that slips into the scout role, and you can just build Lancers / Stars very easily out of vehicles. But with that maneuvering ace, with light mechs, say Locusts and Stingers and things like that, that can come in handy. It can save your life if you're in a bit of a pickle. Now, I'm gonna move over to Master Unit List here and do my thing. In case you haven't seen any of the other videos, what you can do in Master Unit List is you can go to your search section and you can choose a role that you want to look at and then filter by that role, and it'll tell you what you've got. Now, there aren't as many battle mechs. This is one of the lower counts for battle mechs, and I think that's because you generally have to be quite fast in order to count as a scout, right? And once you move outside a certain weight range, you're losing the ability to move that fast. There's only so big an engine you can put into a mech. There is a limit on the actual physical tonnage that you can stick in a mech, right? So it's hard to get assault mechs that can move at the speed that you need. So the vast majority of the mechs that are scouts are going to be in the lighter range, and that means that there are just like basically fewer of them. It's not by much. I think most others, yeah, so you've got maybe 300 and something for missile boats. Some of them go up to 500 or 600, but 300 or 400. But in this particular role, you have battle mechs counting as 295 different variants of mechs. But what you do find is a lot of combat vehicles and infantry that come up as scouts. So there's 252 combat vehicles. Now, of the roles that I looked up, that is the largest by a good about 50-ish, 50 or so. That is the most vehicles that you get for any of those roles, by about 50. Because, again, there's a lot of light vehicles. There's a lot of lighter wheeled vehicles, lighter VTOLs and hovercraft that just naturally fit into that scout role. So there's 252 combat vehicles. There's 219 different infantry types that count as scouts. There's 12 industrial mechs, which is kind of cool. 16 different proto mechs, very cool, and 17 different support vehicles. Now, the infantry, I think, will have quite a lot more normal infantry, I think. Grey Death Scouts, suits, light battle armor. Yeah, there's still a lot of battle armor in there. Scout suit, battle armor, infiltrator suit. Yeah. So it's still mostly battle armor. But you have the mechanized hover platoon, the clan mechanized hover point, the scouts. They're very light, they're kind of fast, and that kind of lends towards scouting. Of the mechs, I'm looking towards like light end stuff, but I mean, some of the ones that stand out to me, we did the fire support with the missile boat, and the light end was the baboons and the locust for clan and inner sphere, and they're again in as scouts. Baboons and locusts are both in there. But there's a lot of light, very light scouts. So you're running from the low, super light ones at 15 tons, all the way up to, I think the biggest one was the Charger. Yeah. So there's 3 different versions of the Charger at 80 tons that actually qualify as scouts. Right? So that, I mean, you're not making the Steiner Scout Lance with all Atlases, but you can make an assault level Scout Lance if you want to take charges. And you can easily make a heavy one with things like, a clan heavy one. You've got the Loki, the linebacker, and the Kumar are both, well, all 3 of them are scout level. They're 60 to 65 tons. And the Morpheus is a 65-ton scout for the Innisphere. But the ones that stand out to me, the Baboon, the Locust, you've got the Flea, which is a kind of cool little mech. The Mongoose, I like the Mongoose, very nice. And the Firestarter, one of my favourites. The Jenna is an interesting lighter mech. I think fairly suited to scout roles. The Assassin is a cool scout mech. Then you've got all of the bug mechs, well, almost all of the bug mechs. I'm pretty sure that there's Stingers and Wasps and the Locust and all of that sort of stuff. They're all in there. The Spider has a bunch of different versions in there. I'm pretty sure the Venom will be in there as well, if I can find it. Maybe not. Maybe not. I can't see it, but yeah. The obvious scout mech, the Raven, that's in there. And yeah, like I say, the Charger, very interesting. 3 different versions of that at 85 tons that have scout as their role. And I'm looking at the vehicles now, and you've got a bunch of different like medium range tanks, but almost everything that I'm looking at here says hover in one shape or form, and then as you move down, they transfer to VTOL. But you've got the Galleon light tank. There's a bunch of different versions of the Badger track transport, which I think is a clan one. Just a second. Yeah, that's a clan one. Okay. Only a few hundred BV per unit, basically. That's not bad. But yeah, a bunch of hover tanks and a bunch of VTOLs. Some light wheeled tanks, like scout tanks. They're actually called scout tanks, so that's obvious. But most of the APCs, the armored personnel carriers, come through as scout units in one shape or another. What have we got industrial mech-wise? I'm interested now. Oh, okay. So there's survey mechs, security mechs, there's a militia mech, and a couple of salvage mechs. Okay. Well, that's cool. But, Recon is about fast and light. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. There's a bunch of different proto-mechs, 16 different types of proto-mechs. And we are going to go into proto-mechs at some point, so that's probably well worth remembering. I'll have to have a think about that, actually. But yeah, lots and lots of vehicles in the Scout role. So if you are thinking about running a full formation build, then getting some cheap BV to fill a formation out, you could just make a little Recon Star or Recon Lance with some very cheap, very useful but dispensable units. And those vehicles, they really are just, you're paying BV to get them, but you're not really worried if they disappear. All you want them to do is go out there and maybe narc something or spot for something or do like a couple of points of damage to soften something up before it hits your main group. Or to go out and capture objectives. I mean, if you're sending them out to capture an objective, and the enemy isn't worried about them. They're like, I'm not going to chase down a 14 speed VTOL just because it's going to go and get to my back line. Well, you know, you're going to lose you're going to lose victory points for the fact that he gets back there and does the thing. Anyway, that's it for that. I'm going to move on to the next one. I will, catch you guys later. Stay groovy.